Hi there, my name is John Stevens, pastor of Zion Lutheran Church in Oregon City, Oregon, and we're part of the ELCA. And I'm in my car. I'm sitting here waiting for an event, and I thought I might do a dollar store children's sermon video. And it is gorgeous outside. The sun is coming in. It's cold, but it's gorgeous. And it's hard to believe that we're at the first Sunday of Advent. That's what this Dollar Store Children's Sermon is all about. Doing it for the narrative lectionary and the Revised Common Lectionary. It's the same gospel out of Mark. So we're going to touch a little bit on the second reading for the Revised Common Lectionary, but they all kind of they wrap together. So I am so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're spending a little bit of your time with me in this way, and you are rocking it. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the love that you're sharing with your families, your kids, and your congregations. You are rocking it. And Happy New Year as we begin this new year of Year B and Year of Mark in the Revised Common Lectionary, and as you dip your fingers and toes and nose into the waters of Mark for the narrative lectionary. So, a couple of springboards. For the Revised Common Lectionary and the second reading, I am the springboard, the idea I'm working with is a gift box. You can get a couple of them at the Dollar Tree, and they stack inside each other. You can get 2 or 3 that they fit inside each other, and it have the bottom one or the smallest one empty. You could do just one gift box. You could wrap a gift box, something like that, but it's empty. Because you're going to spend some time wondering or wandering with your kids about, and it's almost like that godly play question, I wonder. And it's talking about, the second reading mentions the gift of grace. You know, you've been gifted, you've been given the gift of grace. And so just wondering with the kids, what might that look like? If we talk about grace being the love of God, the unconditional love of God, the undeserved grace of God, love of God, that God's grace just pours out over us and claims us as God's children, what might that kind of love look like? I wonder if I was given that gift of grace and I was to live that out and give that to the people all around me, what might that look like? What might it look like if God gives God's grace to us? What might that look like? It might look like the waters of baptism. It might look like the meal around the table. It might look like the sharing of the peace in holy service when absolute chaos erupts. What might it look like for you? And asking that question, that it's so all of a sudden this box that was empty is pretty darn full. I've used one springboard I've used before is the idea of the empty box, but wrapping it up. My son Peter, when he was in kindergarten, his kindergarten teacher made them. Everybody made a love box, and it was they opened it up and they whispered, "I love you," and they wrapped it up. And so I still have that box in my office, and that reminds me of the gift of love that my son has for me, God's grace. God's gift box, this idea that we are gifted with God's love and God's grace. So that's the first springboard. Around the gospel lesson, and especially around the first Sunday of Advent, there's 2 springboards to go with it. One is we're looking at you got the Advent candles, you got the Advent wreath with the candles, you've got an Advent calendar, you've got a watch, you've got a cell phone, you have a clock on the wall, you have like the sons of the hourglass. So are the days of our lives. Anyway, you've got the hourglass like from a game where you can tell time. All this idea that all of these are ways to pay attention to where we're at in the season of Advent and in the journey to the manger. And this text tells us to stay awake, to pay attention. You might have an alarm clock set to where it can go off a minute into your children's sermon, and we're called to stay awake and stay alert and pay attention and watch. And so all of these ways are ways that we tell time, the ways that we know where we're at. We light the first candle, we know we're in the first Sunday of Advent. So that might be a way to talk to your kids about why we light the candles. And you could talk about if it's one of your practices to highlight each of the names of the candles, this is a time that you can do that. So we've got that about telling time. The other is this idea about staying alert, staying awake, and watching in that text. And so having a pair of binoculars, either a toy pair of binoculars, having a telescope, if you want. You could have one of those. Look here. You can make one from a tube of either like paper towel or a gift wrapping, one of those tubes, and that can be your telescope as you're looking and you're paying attention and you're watching, and you've got that. Or if you have a ring cam or something like that, you have on your phone, you have a thing that you could go, I'm paying attention to what's at my front door to see, it's like, oh, I ordered a gift from somewhere, and you open it up and you can see your ring cam, and you could have a live picture. Some churches have ring cams on their premises, and so you might be able to call that up. But talking about being alert, paying attention, and that this text is all about looking for and paying attention to Jesus. And this text is about the second coming of Jesus, and we're also looking at where is Jesus present in our midst. Can you see Jesus? Can you find Jesus in this place? In the waters of baptism, at the table, in the Word. You could do a tour of the sanctuary, different places where they find Jesus, stopping in the middle of the sanctuary and we find Jesus here in all of the people that are gathered here, because when two or more are gathered, Christ promises that Christ will be present, and here is Christ in our midst. To pay attention, to stay alert, and all of that. All right, so many springboards that you could possibly use for this. I'm hoping one of these can be useful for your own children's sermon. Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your week with me in this way. And I will see you next week. All right, peace.